Hi all and welcome to my channel. So today we are going to talk about two important keywords. The first keyword is the self and the second keyword is the super keyword, right? So what are these two keywords? So basically we are talking here about uh, uh, the Python 2 concepts that are also very much integral part of the object-oriented programming, right? So let us start one by one and let us talk about the self keyword first, right? So what is a self? So basically, self is something that represents the instance of a class, right? So uh, and if we talk about the self generally, then by using the self keyword, we can access the attributes and methods of the classes in Python, right? So it basically binds the attributes with the given arguments. And the reason we need to use self is because Python does not allow, at the rate syntax to refer to the instant attributes, right? So Python basically decided to do methods in a way that makes the instance to which the methods belong be passed automatically but not received automatically. So the first parameter of method is instance, the method is called on, right? On the other hand, the super method is basically a method through which we can refer to all the methods and the variables that are declared inside the methods, although you can call it as a member variables inside the parent class, right? So that is how the super keyword is used, and that is also a slightly, I would say, uh, intermediate to advanced concept in Python, right? So why do we use self in every method of a class, right? So you must have seen a lot of examples. If you are basically a guy who has worked on a base level and you have a good knowledge of the methods and you know how the classes are built, and basically on the basis of classes how you are creating the methods. So why do we use a self keyword in a class, right? That is the question that arises. Like with every method which is declared inside or created inside a class, you would see the self keyword called inside the simple brackets, right? So if I go down over here, you can see something like a start a car, which is where you can see a self, right? So why do we use self? That is the question. So when we define a method inside a class, we are actually defining a function that belongs to an object, like an instance of a class. So when you call it like this, let's say object.method, so Python can actually convert it to a class name dot method dot object, right? So when I say this is a particular class which is called as car, and in the car we have a def or a method that is called as start, right? So you can see the self here created, and then there is a print statement saying starting the car, right? So when we create an object of this particular car, which is my car, so this is an object of a class, and then we do my car dot start. So when we call my car dot start, what actually is happening internally, the Python is calling as car dot start then my car, right? So basically it is passing an object over here into the start function. That automatically happens. You don't need to do that manually, or you need to write it. So you don't need to do that. Inside the function we can refer to it as self. That's why we write it, def start self. That is why it's done. Now the question arises, that is putting up the self keyword mandatory practice? Like, do we need to do that? Is it a standard practice? Is it a best practice? uh, uh, how do we define it, right? So you must include it. I think that is my understanding, and I believe that using self is basically mandatory and also considered as a best practice. The first parameter that is always declared inside a class for a particular method is always self, right? Now some people would say that, oh, I can do it without the self keyword also, and I have also taken that particular code which will basically work. So let's say I do a class car, then I do a def start x, then I print the car and the value of x, right? So basically I do a c car, I create an object of the class, and then I call the function which is inside that particular class, and it is going to work fine. But this is a bad practice. That is the first thing. It is confusing for other programmers, and the Python community has agreed to always name it as self. So that is why self is not a keyword but a strong convention and a necessary parameter for the instance methods, right? So that is why it is called an instance of a class. Okay, so that's it from the self side. We will see some examples where we will cover both the self keywords as the super keywords. The first example that you see over here is having both the self keyword and the super keyword, right? So as you can see, we have declared a class, right? So you can take this class as a parent class, right? And the class in which we are passing this class. So basically these classes where I have named it Divakar and Divakar 2, right? So these are the child classes where the parent class has been called. Now uh, let us talk about the self, right? So self basically if you would see in the init function, we have called this self class, right? So why are we doing that, right? What is the reason for that? So basically it refers to the current object, right? So that is why we use self, that it represents the instance to a class, and it is used to access the variables and methods that belong to the same object, right? So basically it is referring to the current object. So self dot age is equal to age, or self dot legs is equal to 4, or self dot domestic is equal to true. So basically it is referring to its own object. And then we are declaring other customized methods where basically if this particular value is true, we are printing a statement in case of a true condition, similar for this one, right? So now we go to the child classes, right? Because we are doing super and self both in over here, but more or less the super keyword is the point of the main point to be explained in this particular snippet. So you can see in the child class Divakar and in the child class 2 we have used the super function under the init, and then we are trying to call the init for the parent class. So basically what super is doing over here is it is calling the parent class's init method, which is the def method, def init method, and it is calling it. And if you would see that there is another method over here, like let's say is mammal self, right? So super is mammal, right? So basically what is doing is it has called a method, and in the method it is basically calling the super is mammal, right? So basically what it is going to do is it is going to call this particular method, and if this value is equal to true, which it is going to print this value, it is a mammal, right? And if you will go to this one, has tail and legs. So here in the child 2, which is basically Divakar 2, it says the self dot tail and self dot legs is equal to 4, which in this case is also true. So basically it is going to has legs and tails will get printed, right? So basically it is going to print this is mammal, right? So it is going to print this, it is a mammal, and then it is going to print has legs and tails, right? So we can run it and we can see it. There are going to be a lot of examples which are going to be run over here, but we can see it over here, right? So for this particular case, you can see that it is a mammal and has legs and tails, like we said, have run, right? So how this happened? We created an object for this particular class, which is Divakar, right? So this is the one, this is the child class, and then we called this one as is mammal, right? So the object of the class called this particular function. So we went here, then we went here, and in this particular function we called this function, and it printed it is a mammal, right? And this can be seen over here, right? So this is the first sentence, right? In the second one, we said we took another name like Bruno, and then we put another child class named Divakar too, right? And then we called the method, which is this method, through this one, like Bruno has tails and legs, right? So has tails and legs is a function inside this particular class, and here we had a function, right? What is the function? The function says that if self dot tail and self dot leg. So now where are these values coming from? These values are coming from this method where we are using super to call the init method. So it is doing nothing but importing all these values from the parent class into the child class, and once it is into the child class, we are importing these values as is into this particular method. Now you can see self.tail is true and self.legs is equal to 4, right? So these are the values. Self.legs is 4 and self.tail is equal to true, right? So this condition stands true and this is going to be printed. So that is what has been done, and this value has been printed, right? So that is how it is. Now let us go to another example of self. In Python, the self represents the instance of a class again, and it is used to access variables and methods that belong to the same object. Now again, we have given a very small example where we have taken name and age as the dynamic parameters of the particular method, which is the default method inside this particular class, right? And we are referring to the current object. So in case of self.name, we are referring to the current object which will get passed dynamically, and for age also the same thing, right? So name and age we are passing, right? So now what we have done is there is another customized method over here. Again, you can see the self has been passed over here, right? And when we print this, that my name is this and my age is this, so it is going to print the name and age, right? So in this case, it is going to print Alice and 21. So my name is Alice and I am 21 years old. And in this case, it is going to run I am Bob and I am 22 years old, right? So how we are doing that? Again, we created an object to a class, right? So this is the object for the class student, and again we have created a second object for the class student, right? So there is only one class, there is no parent and child class, so we are not discussing super over here, right? Now once we do s1.show, what it is going to do is it is going to pass this Alice and this int variable over here. So 21, sorry, Alice and 21 will land up over here. It will go from here to here. So self.21 is equal to 21 and self.alice is equal to Alice and self.21 is equal to 21, right? Now as you can see that in this customized method we are already passing self. So my name is self.name. So what is self.name? Self.name is Alice. So Alice will get printed over here, and I am self.age. So self.age is basically 21. So 21 will get printed. Same case will be for Bob. Like so, Bob and the age 22 will get printed in that case, right? So if we run it again, I think we have already run it, but let me run it again, right? So my name is Alice, and I am 21 years old. My name is Bob, and I am 22 years old, right? So that is how it is going to work. Let's see another example of super. I think it is more or less the same, but we can still talk about it. Again, this is the parent class animal, and this is the child class where the parent is being passed, right? So all the attributes of parent would also pass over here. So we are basically calling the init of the parent constructor, right? And when I say super.init and the name is passed, so basically it is the self.name, and self.breed will be equal to breed. That is what we are doing, right? And then we do the speak method is there, where we are again passing self, which is the self keyword, and super.speak. So what is super.speak doing in this case? The super.speak in this case is going to call the parents speak method, right? So super, we are referring to the parent, and in the parent it is going to call the speak method, right? And what is the constructor doing over here? The child constructor is basically calling the parent constructor, which is the super.init, right? So basically when you pass the dog's name Tommy and the dog's breed as a Labrador, so these values are going to pass into the child, right? Now when we pass it to the child, this is going to come up over here, dog1 and dog.speak, right? So basically this is the object of this particular class, the child class dog, right, where we pass these particular values, and it is going to land up over here, and then it is going to first call the parent method, which is the super.speak. So it will say self.name makes a sound. So self.name makes a sound, basically Tommy makes a sound, and uh, when we call this one, it is going to say Tommy barks, right? So let us run it. So you can see the value Tommy got passed, and when it went to super.speak, it called the parent method, and in the parent method it declared the name dynamically that Tommy, or whatever the name of the dog is, makes a sound. And when we comment it out into the chat, ask me, correct me if I am wrong somewhere, and I would be more than happy to help you out if in case you have any questions or any concepts that you would like to understand from our side, right? Thanks guys, and see you again in the next video.